more than 100 years old. Since birth, I have been cared for by many generations of one family. I was born in this setting on the western edge of Canada, not far from Victoria. It is a pristine place amongst firs and cedars. I was christened Benvenuto, Italian for welcome, but visitors call me the Butchart Gardens. I've spread a little since my youth. I now cover 55 acres. That's 22 hectares in metric measure. While I collect my thoughts, why don't I leave you to wander on your own for a bit, to see my many gardens within a garden. Now, what about some scenes from my past? I was a very ugly duckling, a child of industry. My birthplace was a limestone quarry used for the manufacture of Portland cement. The generosity of this man, Robert Pym Butchart, made me possible. He was a pioneer cement manufacturer in Canada. The cement was shipped by ocean via Todd Inlet. Mr. Butchart was quick to utilize new technologies, such as using rotary kilns and shipping cement in paper sacks instead of wooden barrels. And this is his wife, Jenny, whose remarkable imagination conceived me. My beginnings were modest. Sweet peas and roses planted in the fields around their home, mere steps from the quarry. Some say Mrs. Butchart became determined after an acquaintance said, "You will never get anything to grow in there, Jenny." Tons of topsoil were brought from a nearby farm by horse and cart. An outcrop of limestone created a high point from which to view this extraordinary reclamation project set against a background of industrial buildings. And here Jenny Butchart set to work. She even hung over the grim quarry walls in a bosun's chair, tucking ivy and soil into any crevice in the barren rock. My renown spread. First friends came to visit, then friends of friends, and all were welcomed. Until numbers made it impossible, everyone was served a cup of tea. 18,000 cups in 1915 alone. As time passed, Benvenuto became home to the conveniences of modern life. Jenny spent every spare moment tending my flowers. A pond in the shape of a star was built as a decorative home for Mr. Butchart's ducks. In 1926, the family tennis court was transformed into an Italian garden, presided over by a bronze statue of Mercury. In 1928, Mr. and Mrs. Butchart were awarded the freedom of the city. The quotation of the day couldn't have been more apt: for their public service and kindliness of heart. One of their grandchildren, Ian Ross, played amongst my flowers during his childhood. Then in 1939, they gave me their beloved gardens to Ian for his 21st birthday. During his 55 years of stewardship, Ian Ross developed me into a world-renowned beauty, attracting millions of admirers from all over the globe. For his efforts, Ian Ross received both the Order of British Columbia and the Order of Canada. And oh, what a time it's been, with Mr. and Mrs. Butchart for 35 years. And with Ian and his wife Anne Lee for more than 50. Still in the Butchart-Ross family, great-granddaughter Robin Clark and her son Barnabas continue to cater to my every need. I love the freshness of spring flowers, hundreds of thousands of flowering bulbs amongst blossoming trees and shrubs. Now that you're getting to know me, I would like to share with you some of my vital statistics. I'm on 55 acres of a 130-acre estate. My ingenious gardeners have extended my seasons with a succession of plantings, providing continuous color from early March until November. All of the world's gardens have their hallmarks. Mine is my forest setting, against which an unending display of color parades itself. The sunken garden lake, where trout came to feed when Mr. Butchart clapped his hands. Some of us get diamonds, but for my 60th anniversary, I was given the Ross Fountain. This fountain began in the imagination of Ian Ross, who designed and built it of ordinary hardware with the help of his plumber and electrician to create endless variations. British Columbia's arbutus tree is the largest member of the heather family. It sheds its bark every year. The Japanese garden. Here, Mrs. Butchart brought a visitor one day, a British adventurer named Captain Frederick Marshman Bailey, who talked of a poppy which he'd recently discovered in Tibet. He was amazed when Mrs. Butchart happily showed him his blue poppy, grown here from the original seed he'd sent to the Edinburgh Botanical Garden. Here in Waterwheel Square, we end our spring tour at a bed of Jenny Butchart tulips. Now it's time to see me in my summer clothes. Every beauty loves her mirror. To reflect, well, to reflect this, Jenny Butchart's Rose Garden. Hybrid teas, floribundas, ramblers, roses old and new, roses from all over the world. Over 3,000 plants in 250 varieties. I love the names. Cherry Parfait, Mellow Yellow, Canadian Sunset, Peace, and of course my personal favorite, the Jenny Butchart Rose. My gardeners remove spent blooms to encourage continuous flowering throughout the entire summer. Some of my climbing roses are the originals planted by Jenny Butchart. Ian Ross used to say, most of gardening is just plain hard work. This special bower where Mr. Butchart originally kept his prized pigeons now shows hanging baskets of begonias and fuchsias. Cornus Cusa, a relative of British Columbia's dogwood. Creatures fashioned from moss inspire the imagination of my younger visitors. A garden is not a static creation, it's a living, breathing work of art that is forever changing. Mrs. Butchart certainly understood that. Her daughter noted in her diary that Mother had just returned from a 6-month world cruise, and the first day back spent 12 whole hours working in the garden. Heavy clay removed for the manufacture of cement left this naturally wet area, which is perfect for my bog garden. land that once grew vegetables became one of my numerous perennial borders. Once part of the Butchart's kitchen garden, these apple trees are nearly 100 years old. On sunny afternoons, Butchart grandchildren played here on the residence lawn. My bronze sturgeon fountain was purchased in Italy by Mr. and Mrs. Ross. A red torii gate marks the entrance to the Japanese garden, where in 1905 Jenny Butchart and landscaper Isaburo Kishida from Japan set to work on the slope of land between the residence and the Pacific Ocean. An opening in the cedar hedge offers a view of Butchart Cove, where my visitors can arrive by boat. The Star Pond, long ago home for Mr. Butchart's ducks. The Italian garden, with symmetrical beds around a pond in the shape of a Florentine cross. Mr. and Mrs. Butchart could view it from above, from their bowling alley, swimming pool, or billiard room. Look at my tennis court now. The private garden, a quiet place for Jenny to be on her own. The Butchart tradition of serving tea to visitors continues today in the dining room restaurant. Purchased in Italy, this is Taka, the Butchart wild boar. Visitors rub his nose and wish for luck. Flowers bloom year-round in the show house. Mediterranean garden. Plants are grown here that enjoy a Mediterranean climate. Thought to be extinct, for many years ginkgo trees were only found as fossils in British Columbia rock. Ginkgos have now been reintroduced after they were found flourishing and in fact protected by Buddhist monks in China. Live entertainment in the gardens is a family tradition. Always changing, presentations have included entertainment for children, symphony concerts, and Celtic music, to mention just a few. And this was my 50th birthday present. Then the largest underground wiring project of its kind in North America, with thousands of lights. A magical world so different from my daytime gardens. And today, another generation of the Butchart Ross family has fashioned new jewels with which to flatter me. Saturday nights during summer, fireworks, choreographed to music from my garden setting by great-grandson Christopher Ross, fill my skies with a theatrical performance of fire. Aren't they marvelous? After the fireworks show, my visitors are entertained by music from Christopher Ross's Aeolian pipe organ. Being a beauty of advancing years, I'm sure you'll understand that it takes more than a little effort to get me ready in the morning. In autumn, gardeners prepare my innumerable beds for winter. Good work! Only 60,000 more bulbs and we'll be done. During this season, the leaves of my renowned collection of Japanese maples are a blaze of color. In 2005, the Canadian government designated me a National Historic Site of Canada. To commemorate the event, this plaque was installed at the edge of the sunken Garden Lake. The only remnant of Mr. Butchart's cement plant is this towering chimney. Mrs. Butchart used to say that all you needed to make concrete look like tree bark is a simple fork. The monkey puzzle tree, so called because its sharp-pointed leaves would leave a monkey puzzled as to how to climb it. The dahlia, whose discoverer didn't think much of it as a flower, but thought its tuber might make a fine substitute for the potato. All year round, the Rose Carousel delights children of all ages. Housed in the spectacular pavilion with its domed roof, the hand-carved animal figures provide a charming seat for the youthful riders. Opened for the magic of Christmas in 2009, the carousel was inspired by the Butchart's great-granddaughter Robin, who personally selected the wide and wonderful menagerie of animals. My celebration of the joy of Christmas is past. Cedar and juniper wreaths around the seed and gift store where visitors browse for hours. In this season without flowers, I've been showered with Christmas lights.
Strike the harp and join the chorus. Follow me in merry measure. While I tell of Yuletide treasure.
Families search my gardens for symbols of the 12 days of Christmas. Christmas visit is complete after a skate on real ice on my very own outdoor rink. Even in winter, when at rest, I attract many an envious glance. To add to my winter adornments, my resourceful gardeners plant a garden indoors on the floor of the Blue Poppy restaurant. Inside the original Butchart residence, my historic artifacts are displayed during winter. This was the Butchart's dining room, the breakfast room, the billiard room, photographic memories of Mr. and Mrs. Butchart's travels, and of Jenny arranging the flowers she loved so much. When Mr. and Mrs. Butchart were honored with the freedom of the city, they were presented with this traditional key. This machine was used in the 1920s to clean seeds for Mrs. Butchart's mail order business. Mr. Butchart enjoyed collecting unusual music boxes. But the story doesn't end in winter. It doesn't ever really end, as you can see with some before and after pictures. And today, over 100 years since Jenny Butchart planted her first sweet pea, third and fourth generations of the Butchart-Ross family continue welcoming my visitors. And here is where Jenny Butchart's extraordinary horticultural adventures began, where she began to scratch out a garden in the forest on the west coast of Canada. And in my visitor's book, returning visitors write, bless them all, that I am more beautiful than ever.